Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we will take a look at some new revenge content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
First one is titled, Tree Guys vs. Pool Guys. I win, but so does he, after he moves away. Classic pool guys vs. tree guys. I'm a tree guy. Neighbor behind me was a pool guy. And a prairie dog. Meaning the kind of neighbor that likes to peek over everyone's fence and get in their business. And a douchebag, but that's just ad hominem at this point. We'll call him PD for prairie dog. His wife? PDW. PD is a contractor, and likes to fix everyone's crap. He tries to be neighborly, when he tells you he'll help you fix your decrepit shitty doghouse or fence, or whatever, but it's like, no one asked you. So my wife is out back one day and PD pokes his head over the fence to tell her our Chinese hackberry trees we have growing in the yard are dropping crap in his pool and on his deck and ruining everything. Now my wife and I have recognized this and in fact had an appointment with an arborist to take a look to see if we could treat the trees to make it stop fruiting. These things are big and beautiful and we don't want to take them out if we can avoid it. Said appointment was a couple weeks away. So my wife tells PD what the plan is, and he says, that won't work. Gotta remove the trees. Let me know when you want to take them out and I'll help you do it. What a nice guy. My wife tells him we'd rather get the opinion of an expert and then he asks her the dreaded question all wives hate. Is your husband home? Let me talk to him. Now my wife is not to be trifled with. I commend her for not knifing him where he stood. Instead, she comes inside where I'm watching a movie with my sons and says to me, go out and talk to the neighbor before I do something I regret. He wants to take out the trees. She explains the scenario. I thank her for her restraint and for staying out of jail. I go out to talk to PD. He tells me the same thing he just told my wife. I tell him about the arborist. He tells me the same thing about taking the trees out, and that he would be happy to help when I want to do it. As long as it is in the next week or two, that is. When I tell him that we are going to wait for the opinion of an expert, he tells me that he is going to have to see a copy of my homeowner's insurance. This is a little bit out of left field for me, and so I simply roll my eyes and say, yeah, you know what? I'll go right inside and get that for you. Wait here. He knows I'm being sarcastic at this point and tells me that the trees have to come out because the roots are growing on his side and there's no way they can stay. So now, we are talking about two different problems here, and I say, I'm not going to make any decisions here and now. I'm going to have an arborist look at it and I'll let you know what he says. I go back inside and leave PD standing there in his Oakley wraparound sunglasses. The next day, I am sitting in my backyard enjoying a cold drink and barbecuing up some meat to enjoy. I notice PD standing on the fence trimming the tree branches that had grown on his side all the way up to infinity, as is his right to do. That didn't make the activity any less jerky, but whatever. He notices me sitting in the backyard and gives me a look. I smile and raise my drink, and he goes back to trimming the trees. All the time, he has a sour look on his face and keeps glancing over at me. So, I go and stand right underneath him and watch him as he trims the trees, sipping my drink and staring up at his work. After a few minutes of this, as he is wiping the sweat off his brow, I remark, you missed a spot. I stroll away chuckling to myself and throw my empty charcoal bag into the trash on the side of the house, and go back to my comfortable spot under my patio. A few minutes later, prairie dog wife, PDW, sticks her head up over top of the fence and barks, do you think this is funny? To which I replied up at PD, still standing on the fence, you told on me to your wife. Smooth move. At this point, PDW gets pretty livid, and starts going on a tirade about how we have ruined the concrete with the droppings from the trees. I reply that I have concrete as well and that the stains come up pretty easily with some powdered detergent, and that's got to be a lot less effort than chopping down a tree. I felt no further obligation to explain about any arborist or any other professional. They both go back inside after a while and I have a nice barbecue in the backyard, now dreaming up all kinds of fun ways that I can really rub it into these people. I'm thinking of subscribing them to the Arbor Day Foundation, Greenpeace, and maybe hanging a sign in the branches pointed at their house that says, "Stop bullying this tree." You know, harmless fun. But the gloves came off when I received a text the next day from my wife as she got home from work and I was still at the office. It was a picture of the roots of my tree completely severed and cut away from the fence. My wife had a few choice words to say about it. So I came home, and I called my local police department. Now I live in a decent-sized city, but the city services are all kind of like Mayberry, where everyone knows each other and still gives you that small-town feel. I like that. So when I called up, the dispatcher on the non-emergency line offered to let me speak to an officer right away. When I tell this officer the story, he asks me, "Wait a minute. So this guy set boots on your property and cut the roots to your tree?" I say, yes, and ask him what he would do if he caught somebody in his backyard with a reciprocating saw in his hand. The officer tells me he'd better not advise me on this. I chuckle and tell the officer, "Message received," and he asks me for PD's phone number so he can call him up and ask him about what happened personally. I happily oblige him and give him PD's number, which PD had graciously given me to call when I was ready to have him help me take the trees out. And the officer tells me he will call me back as soon as he has spoken to PD. Less than a half hour later, I get a call back from the officer, who tells me, "Well, he cut your roots, that much is for sure." He admitted it to me. But he claims that he did it from his side of the fence. Now I don't know how that's possible without having the world's longest arms, because your backyard fence has to be 6 or 7 feet tall, right? I laugh. He continues, because he admitted it, he's liable if the tree dies. I don't know if you have investigated tree law, but it's really expensive to replace a tree and you could have a lot of fun suing him over that. I don't think he's going to be bothering you about this tree anymore because he and I had a nice chat about it. I start laughing my head off and tell the officer, that tree isn't going anywhere. It's a Chinese hackberry tree. It will survive the end of the world. To which the officer replies, "I wouldn't tell him that if I were you." I never heard from PD about those trees ever again. Eventually, we had the trees treated so they stopped dropping crap everywhere. But I waited until PD moved away before removing the trees entirely. The root system was getting a bit out of control, and they started affecting the next door neighbors that I actually like. I wouldn't want to cause them any damage. They are nice people after all. I should have called my former neighbor to help me. "Hey prairie dog, I'm ready to take the trees out. Can you help?" Last one is titled, "Screw Me Over, I Take Away Your Promotion." For 18 months I'd been working from home, as most of us had. From a work perspective this has been great. I've been more productive than when I'm in the office, been able to work more flexible hours and have saved a ton of money by not commuting. My workplace had an agreement that those working from home can do what hours they want, so long as we are able to answer urgent calls in core hours and we get all our work done. Fair enough as far as I'm concerned. For 16 months this worked great, as above. Then over a few weekends I had a clear out of the house and took pictures of all the items that are in good condition but we no longer want, with a view to giving it away to whoever wants it. One day when I'm working from home I take my lunch break, make a quick sandwich and post the items that I'm giving away on one of those local Facebook free pages. I didn't know it at the time but one of the managers, called Shambles henceforth, from my work was also signed up to that page and he saw my post. He then took it upon himself to go to the owner of the company and tell him that I was slacking off and posting on Facebook during work hours. For context, this wasn't my boss, who was super chill so long as everything was done on time. Nor was the complaint to my boss, but to the owner of the company. We're a big business so there's a lot of people in the chain of command between me and the owner. And to top it off I'd been doing a lot of work for Shambles. He'd outsourced the running of entire projects to me over the last 18 months. All of which I'd executed well and he'd taken ample credit for, and this was the only time in 18 months I'd posted anything on Facebook, because I never post. So the owner contacted me, and to be fair he's a decent guy. The conversation went like this. Owner. I've been told you're posting on Facebook during work hours. Just be smart about it, it doesn't look good when colleagues see it. Me. Completely understand, just so you know I posted that during my lunch break. Owner. I was told you were posting at noon. The company lunch break is usually 1 to 2. Me. I did, but that's because when I'm homeworking I always take my lunch 12 to 1. Owner. Okay, I don't have an issue with that, just keep your head down. Like I said, a decent guy. I wasn't really in trouble and the owner didn't seem to care, but then I started to think, wait, who the hell has gone to the owner with this in the first place? Long story short, a coworker, who was working on site that day, heard on the grapevine that Shambles had been bitching to the owner about me and how I'm always on social media when I should be working. I literally only have Facebook and I only use that for Messenger 99% of the time. Cue petty revenge. As I said before, Shambles likes to outsource work to me. I never minded this. The work was varied and it broke the week up. Plus my own boss didn't mind as I always had my work for him done on time. However, I never got recognition for this extra work. For 2 years I managed a sub-department completely on my own because he didn't have time to do it. I didn't get a penny more for it, but it was a good group of people and I enjoyed getting experience of management. Well, after this, every time Shambles came to me with an issue I would say I was super swamped, but that I'd try to deal with it if I had time. The projects he tried to outsource to me I immediately rejected, saying that I had a full plate from my actual job. And that sub-department I ran. We'll get to that. Over the next couple of months Shambles starts missing his deadlines, issues come up with existing projects that he hasn't fixed and employees are complaining that every time they go to him with an issue it doesn't get resolved. It dawns on me at this point that I've basically been doing this guy's job for him for years. Duck that. I set up a meeting with my boss and put forward my arguments for why I should be promoted, or really, why I should have been ages ago. I point to all the projects I've successfully run as well as the sub-department I've managed for 2 years. He completely agrees and says he'll take it to his boss. Now somehow, I don't know how, but when I go to the next meeting with my boss's boss, Shambles is there too. He's on the same level in the company as my boss's boss. A little phased, but not willing to give up, I put my arguments forward to them. Shambles lets me finish, then proceeds to tell me that I don't know enough about our work to manage, I don't have the required people skills, and then he tells me, and this is verbatim, besides, people here don't respect you. They respect me. I know I'm a good manager. If you really think about it, you know you wouldn't be. I forget what else was said after that, but I was completely destroyed. Boss's boss comes up to me afterwards and tells me that Shamkes is a dick, but unfortunately he's got the approval of the higher-ups, so what he says has too much sway for him to go against him. I tell boss's boss that if that's the way it is, I'm going to look for other employment. He sighs and says, I don't blame you. Cue pro revenge. During the time it took me to look for and apply to other jobs, I have time to think about how I can get back at Shambles. He's used me for years and is now blocking my promotion. I'd already stopped working on his stuff and his projects were going from bad to worse, but I needed something more. Now this next part could be an entire post on its own, so I've bulleted it for brevity. If you want more context I can write it out later. 1. I'm an accredited internal auditor for our quality systems. 2. I ask if I can be assigned a couple of last audits before I leave, to help them out. 3. I carry out these audits and using my intimate knowledge of Shambles projects find every single issue I can. 4. A number of people also hate Shambles and give me more dirt on him. 5. Someone gives me breakthrough information that Shambles has been forging signatures and bypassing multiple company procedures to make his KPIs look better. 6. I write up the report, with tons of evidence attached and send it off. 7. The report gets flagged at the highest level because of what it shows. 8. Shambles gets dragged over the coals. I wish I could say this story ends with the Shambles getting fired and having to sell his body on the street for scraps, but obviously using all the connections he has, he keeps his job. I later found out though that he was due a massive promotion, as in, catapulted to the top of the company, running whole divisions kind of thing. That never happened though. With his declining numbers as well as a damning audit showing all his shortcomings, he's basically told he'll never progress beyond where he is and that he's lucky to have a job at all. He still works there, and I'm told his ego has been taken down a whole washing line worth of pegs. As for me, I'd love to say I got a better job with a massive raise. That's half true. I decided to pursue my dream job, literally, since I've been a kid, dream job, in a totally different industry. All the experience I had counted in my favor, and although I took a bit of a pay cut, I've never enjoyed work more. Oh, and that sub-department I was running. They knew that when I left, Shambles would take over running them again, so in my last month at the company I gave them all tutorials on how to search for jobs and pass interviews. I'd worked in recruitment previously. I've heard from a number of them since that they'd landed better jobs and thanked me in part for it. Not the perfect ending, but I'm damned happy with it. Thanks for listening.